Alright guys, in today's video we're going to have a very interesting conversation. We're going to be going over some comments that Phil Spencer recently made about competition and how apparently Xbox sees Amazon and Google as their main competitors going forward, at least in the cloud gaming space, which is a clear indication that Microsoft truly does believe the future of gaming is going to be in the cloud. And so I wanted to go over some of the things he said here and talk about it and give my thoughts on it. I know a lot of you have been asking me to do this, and we've been talking pretty much nonstop on the channel about PlayStation news, more specifically PlayStation 5 news and info, rumors and leaks, all that stuff, and that will continue. But I feel like this is significant enough to maybe go over here. So it says, Microsoft's head of gaming and Xbox, Phil Spencer, has revealed that the company sees Amazon and Google as its main competition for the future. Speaking in an interview with newly launched technology publication Protocol, Spencer dismisses Sony and Nintendo's ability to create a cloud infrastructure that will challenge Microsoft, Google, or Amazon. When you talk about Nintendo and Sony, we have a ton of respect for them, but we see Amazon and Google as the main competitors going forward, says Spencer. That's not to disrespect Nintendo and Sony, but the traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position. I guess they could try to recreate Acer, but we've invested tens of billions of dollars in cloud over the years. Microsoft has been realigning its gaming efforts for a future far beyond the Xbox console. The software giant's big effort now involves reaching billions of players around the world with cloud gaming. Google has already launched its Stadia service, and Microsoft is trialing its own xCloud streaming service that is set to launch fully later this year. Spencer has previously discussed the threat of Amazon and Google as competitors, but not in such clear terms. He has also previously stated that Microsoft's gaming business isn't how many consoles you sell, and he acknowledges this further by noting that Microsoft is not interested in getting into a future format war with Nintendo and Sony. I don't want to be in a fight over format wars with those guys while Amazon and Google are focusing on how to get gaming to 7 billion people around the world, Spencer says in the Protocol interview. Ultimately, that's the goal. So those are pretty much the important parts of what he had to say here, and I do have a problem with this for a couple reasons. I think the first and most obvious is that I'm not a fan of cloud gaming. I'm just not. I understand that there are a lot of people out there who truly believe it is the future. I'm not here to tell you you're wrong because I don't know if you're wrong. I don't know if you're right. I don't think any of us truly know. We can assume and try to make our best educated assumption as to what the future of gaming will be, and I can fully understand why people look at cloud gaming and assume that at some point in time will be the future of gaming. But I'm not here to talk about 10 years from now, 15 years from now. I don't like the idea of cloud gaming. I just don't. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. It's not just about the technology itself. We know that the tech is just not fully there yet, but it's also about the sense of ownership and having a tangible experience. And so for me personally, right off the bat, I don't enjoy these comments, and it's disappointing to hear this from Phil Spencer because whether anybody wants to know it or not, the most significant thing people need to understand here is that if you don't think cloud gaming is Microsoft's priority going forward over the console, you're fooling yourself. And I think a lot of people are aware of this, but this is just further proof and confirmation that if you want to know just how important cloud gaming is to Microsoft and Xbox especially, just read what he's saying here. He's more worried about Amazon and Google than he is Sony and Nintendo, and he's not just talking about the cloud space. I've seen a lot of people kind of push back on me and say, MBG, don't you understand? He's only talking about the cloud space. Like, no, this is Microsoft's business. Like, they are a cloud company, so when he's saying that they don't really look at Sony and Nintendo as a threat, why do you think they don't care about how many console units they sell? They're done. They are done. The only reason they're still making consoles is because they know that they have a big enough of a market right now. They have enough market share where it's not justifiable for them to just completely exit the market overnight. They have to continue to support it to some capacity, but it is absolutely not their priority, regardless of what anybody wants to tell you. It's just not. As Phil Spencer said here, his priority and his biggest concern, the thing that's keeping him up at night, is worrying about Google and Amazon tapping into potentially 7 billion people, which last I checked, that's pretty much everybody on Earth or close to it. So that just goes to show like where Phil Spencer's mind is. He wants to, his ambitions are to make every single person on the planet a gamer. And to some people, that may sound like a good thing, but I'm telling you now, I don't think this is a good thing. First of all, do we think he's undermining Sony and Nintendo here? I think he is a little bit. I think so. I think that this is just a clever way of Phil Spencer trying to alter the narrative. I don't even know if he was doing it intentionally or not, but he's trying to make it sound like that Microsoft is already above Sony and Nintendo. Like, they just have this attitude like, oh, we're not worried about them. Like, they're small fish. We got bigger fish to fry. It's like, well, I mean, you couldn't go head to head with Sony in the space and Nintendo in the spaces where they dominate. So I guess it makes sense why you want to shift your focus to Google and Amazon, because I guess they're like they're the new players in the game, I guess you could say. And looking at the way Stadia has launched, that's very clear that Google does not know what they're doing. Granted, they do have the time and resources to correct it if they really want to, but God knows when that'll be. But first of all, there's the two main things I have an issue with here is, like I said, I'm just not a fan of cloud gaming, and my biggest concern is what Sony's going to do in the cloud gaming space, because I'm not so against it that I don't think it should exist at all. I think that's a little bit unfair and irrational. Like, cloud gaming can exist. My biggest concern is I don't want to see a company specifically like Sony do what Microsoft is doing, where they shift their priority. I like what Sony has been doing. I really, really like it. And I kind of don't want it to change. I mean, I do want new things, obviously, but I don't want their focus to shift. I want the focus to be on how can we create games that are so compelling and so high in quality that people are going out there, millions of them, to buy our consoles, to buy and support our games at a $60 price tag. This is how I think it's always worked, and I think it's always worked well, where if you create a high quality product, people are understanding of why it's a little bit more expensive, and it's a give and take. It's a win-win situation. I think, games like God of War, Bloodborne, Spider-Man, even games like Days Gone, in my opinion, they've kind of proven that when the bar for quality is high enough and people are aware of that, they don't mind paying $60 for games. I mean, there are some games I've played from Sony this generation, and I'm not trying to exaggerate here, and I'm not trying to talk them up too much, but there are some games I've played that I would have paid $100 for to get that experience. I don't want to say like you can't put a price on it, because maybe that sounds a little bit dramatic, but I'm not kidding when I say I would have paid like $80 or $100 if they said this is how good this game is, and we believe it's this good, we believe it's worth this price tag. I'd be like, okay, I'll pay that, because I believe it. And so, just right off the bat, that's my biggest concern, and that's why I don't like to see Microsoft veering off in this direction. But the other main concern is the idea of trying to capture a market that doesn't inherently care about video games, at least not the way that we do. And this is where you always discuss the separation between the casual market and the hardcore market. And I'm not trying to say that I want people to be excluded, or that if you're a casual gamer, you're a less gamer. It's not about that type of conversation. It's just more along the lines of, if there's something I think that has been proven with the mobile casual gaming market, the market specifically that games on their smartphones, on their tablets, and they're just really not interested in AAA gaming experiences, and they're certainly not interested in paying a lot of money for gaming experiences. I think it's safe to say it has been proven that these individuals are okay with a much, much lower quality game. They are completely okay with microtransactions. They are actually conditioned to pay a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there for microtransactions, just to progress in a most likely mediocre game. That's the market that companies like Google, Amazon, and especially Microsoft here, that's who they're trying to go after. And this is why I've always been so concerned about Game Pass, because I do think Game Pass is a great deal, and I do think, if I'm being honest, that Microsoft has done a relatively good job in showing that Game Pass can have a really good value proposition. And they put all their first party games on there. Obviously we want to see those first party games improve, and I think that they've been trying their best. I'm trying to give them some credit here, but my big concern with the idea of xCloud and Game Pass combined is you have a situation where you get xCloud available on every person's phone around the world, every smartphone, and you get every single first-party title from Microsoft available to these people for as low as $10, and then suddenly you are tapping into that 1, 2, 3 billion person potential market. But what makes you think they're going to be interested in AAA gaming experiences, even if they do access them at $10? I mean, maybe they will. That is definitely an appealing proposition for anybody, where it's like, hey, you can get higher quality games for less money, right? And that sounds great to anybody, but what's the catch here? Because there will always be a catch. The catch is, if you look at a game like Gears 5, for example, I don't think anybody would argue the overall quality of that game, but if there's something I do specifically remember about Gears 5 are the microtransactions. And I'm not just trying to pick on a game like Gears 5, because the truth is there are a lot of AAA games that offer microtransactions. I just specifically remember there was a little bit of an outcry from the Gears community based off of what I saw, where they were not very happy. Of course, none of these, as far as I know, the big thing with these microtransactions was, well, they don't actually affect the game, they're all cosmetic, but I guess in Microsoft's eyes, that gave them an excuse to charge a really high price point for them, and people were just not happy with the type of grind that was required to get them if you didn't want to pay money, especially like, $20 or $15 or something like that. And again, like, this is stuff we see in a lot of games, but I believe it was, a Jim Sterling video that came out a little while ago, where he was kind of highlighting that out of the three gaming companies in the console space, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, over the years, Microsoft has proven that they are the biggest advocate for microtransactions, and that they are the ones who have tried to push them the hardest. And this is just where you see, like what Phil Spencer's saying here, the fact that they want to go after this market that isn't already here. And this is where my big argument comes in, where I'm just not interested in following a company or supporting a company who's not really that interested in me as a customer. Because I understand they're still making the Xbox Series. I understand that they are, making things like the Elite controller, and they're claiming that they're going to try to, make higher quality games, which maybe they will, maybe they won't. That has yet to be seen in terms of the AAA space. But I just can't get behind the idea of you're so worried about capturing this market that has never cared about what you've done. They just, if they're not buying Xbox consoles, if they're not interested in your Xbox exclusives, they don't care. What they care about is just playing games on their phone, and more often than not, they need those games. The reason why mobile games are really not great, more often than not, is because they have to be as accessible as possible. They have to be as easy as possible, and they have to, in a lot of cases, just be mindless. And that, to me, is not gaming. Like, again, I'm not trying to, throw anybody under the bus here. I'm not here to judge. I'm just simply saying, for me, that's not gaming. Gaming, to me, is something that is a much deeper, much richer experience, and I have absolutely no problem paying the price for that. And if the price is $60, if the price is $400 for a new console, to really, that can take full advantage of these developers, or the developers, I should say, can take full advantage of it and really bring their games to life, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm not worried about trying to play The Last of Us 2 on my phone. And frankly, I don't know who would be. I don't know why that is a thing that anybody should care about. I mean, this is where Microsoft, they're like, we want to get all our games to everybody all the time. And I'm like, I understand from a business level why Phil Spencer and other business people, why this seems like a great thing. I mean, you're talking pure numbers here. You're talking sheer volume. So I get that. But for me, all I can visualize is a situation where if Microsoft ever were to achieve this, if they were to ever actually tap into 1 billion, 2 billion gamers across the planet, first of all, they're done with consoles at that point, because you're talking about 1 billion people, 2 billion people versus what, like 40, 50 million people currently. They're going to be done with that. And not only that, they're probably going to be insanely excited because they're going to realize that not only does the quality bar, not only can it be lowered now because these aren't the people that are going out and buying your Halos, your Gears, and your Forzas. They're not out there buying your $60, $50, $40 games. They're just not. They expect games to either be free or to be like just a couple dollars, maybe $10 max, and that's where Game Pass comes in. And so the quality right there, it doesn't have to be as much of a priority. Don't mix my words here. I am not saying Microsoft will lower the quality. I'm just saying the need for the quality won't be nearly as high. And what do you think is going to happen at that point? They're going to be able to get away with a lot more, and they're going to be aware of that. On top of that, when you think about microtransactions, you're talking about an audience of gamers that 7 billion, as Phil Spencer put it, that they are conditioned to just be okay with microtransactions. Sounds like a field day for them, man. When they can find a group of people who are not upset about microtransactions but expect microtransactions and are okay with paying for microtransactions, especially predatory, egregious ones. Yeah, you see where my concerns lie here? You see why I'm not looking forward to the cloud gaming future? Everybody tries to have this optimistic look, but listen, I see people say, like, well, what about people who want to play Red Dead Redemption but can't afford a console? Listen, I'm not trying to be rude when I say this, and I don't know how big that group of people is, like when it comes to people who simply can't afford the gaming experience, but I'm not trying to see things I'm not trying to see the bar lowered just so more people can be involved, because when that happens, things will become more accessible. And I guarantee you that if these people really cared enough, if they were really that interested in a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, they would find a way to play it and experience it. That's just how I look at things. Maybe that's a little bit selfish of me, but I can't help it because I don't want to see this bar of quality lowered. I just don't. If anything, I want to see it raised. And maybe that means, you're going to end up limiting more people, but I don't know, man. If that's what needs to happen in order to retain some of the amazing gaming experiences I've gotten over the years, then so be it. I'm willing to see it go that way. But to end this video here, because it's turning out long, I want to read a tweet that comes from Matt Piscatella, who I believe is an industry analyst. I don't follow him too closely, but I came across this one where he actually retweeted the same article that we went over here from The Verge. And this is what he had to say. He said, appealing to 7 billion people will also require more adoption of free-to-play and even ad-supported games in order to reach the billions that would continue to choose such options on mobile platforms rather than spend out-of-pocket upfront on cloud. Interesting times ahead. So there you go. Clearly, I'm not the only one who is well aware of what would be necessary in order to appeal to this casual demographic, this casual smartphone gamer market that Phil Spencer is so interested in. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. Be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Be sure to leave the video a like if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.